There was a really quick hotfix patch today, and while it was really small, I do actually think there are a couple of implications about where they want to take one of the characters in this game, that being Sojourn. So I do want to take a pretty big look at it and kind of dissect what I think needs to be done to this character, because I think the initial change that they made last time where they gave her more damage was a good direction, but without giving her any other changes to suit, did make her feel quite oppressive. And so I'm going to look at the changes that they have now and see which ones I think are good and bad, or if they are in the right direction of making this character kind of back to her former glory while keeping her well under the reins. So basically, the only changes there are here is that there's actually a hazard ultimate cost increase because he's just getting it too much, and a big root type ability. That is a really good ability, although I think it's a little underwhelming overall. It can still feel really frustrating to fight against, so making it happen less often, gonna be okay. No problems with this. Let Hazard be on, they say the safe side of strong. I think that is totally fine after the buffs that they gave him. And he's been seeing a little bit of play in the Face It League, although not the most ever. Face It League and Calling All Heroes, I believe. So we'll have to see how Hazard plays out and where he fits into the meta, and I'm going to make a video about that a little later. Okay, so let's talk about Sojourn first. I say first, second. So Sojourn's headshot has gone back up to 180, so she's doing at max 180 to the head. That is with full charge. That was last patch, and that has proven to be really oppressive because you have to remember that also Sojourn's damage in her primary fire has, DPS has gone up because it fires really fast. It has not a lot of spread. These are changes that have been made over like the past year, basically, when they first kind of half reworked Soj about how she works. And also, a lot of that power and DPS has gone into her disruptor shot as well. So here you can see that the railgun primary fire shots per second have been reduced, so her effective DPS is lower. The disruptor shot no longer generates energy like it did last season. That was a change last season. That is gone, and the energy charge rate was reduced from 120 to 100. That is specifically in overclock. She was definitely getting railed too much. So let's get that one out of the way. Definitely what we needed there. I think when I thought about it, I was like, oh god, that's gonna make overclock like kind of insane again. So that is perfectly fine. I also have to, when you bring in the factor of her generating energy with disruptor shot. Oh my god, Soj was just kind of a demon nightmare character in that department. So that is one thing. When it comes to her disruptor shot, oh, I forgot to change my scene there. When it comes to her disruptor shot no longer generating energy, I thought that was an interesting change where her disruptor shot actually did a little bit more and had a little more utility, and you could get a lot out of that. I actually thought the problem that I saw was that disruptor shot doing 80 damage per second instead of 60 damage per second. That was actually going to be why Soj was going to be much more frustrating, not because her energy was, her energy was up often, right? I thought that would like mess with the breakpoints more often. And also, again, Soj, it's a hard change to notice on paper, but it definitely does matter. The fire rate change, that is just a flat DPS nerf. But, at the end of the day, I was a big advocate for the not the 180, but changing her railgun to do a little more damage. At the very least, more than what a headshot from Ashe and Cassidy do. And I think they went overboard. I actually think that it was a little too much. And I'm surprised that they have not actually changed the burst damage here. I figured that we would get a scaling back down to maybe like 10 to 110, and then that would make her headshot do, what would that make it do? Like 165, I'm pretty sure. That seems a lot more reasonable to me, and then they can keep some of that other stuff that they have been doing. But I think if you don't change the disruptor shot with the amount of damage that it does, it actually doesn't really do that much. I mean, Sojourn can still build rail very quickly. She doesn't have to just do it off. Like, I like the disruptor shot change because it actually allowed her to do it off of more characters, right? Like, I actually thought that it was easier to get consistent damage off of squishies based on their positioning rather than just your aim. You know, that was like a really big incentive to keep away from where her disruptor was, because it actually makes her more lethal. I really like that idea, but I think that the problem with 180 plus the 80 DPS from the disruptor, it's just that I can have a little bit of charge and then just throw the disruptor down, and you know, they're 200 health, but still I think that kind of proves the point, right? And that's what I think is actually going to be the problem with Sojourn, is that I think that she is going to be just as dominant. There's not going to be that much of a difference comparatively here. So it's kind of confusing to me how this was able to get through. Now, there's another thing that I would like to talk about, that with power in her rail being so much more emphasized, I think we do need to talk about her degradation rate. So that's, you know, I just built a rail off of this guy. I'm sitting at 100 health or charge, and I'm still sitting at 100 charge, and I'm still sitting at 100 charge, and there we go. Now it finally starts to go away. Okay, right? So right now the degradation does not tick in until after 12 seconds, which to me, if I'm going to be able to have this big 180 burst that I can hold on to, 12 seconds is kind of beyond ridiculous to not have to get any of that charge back. Now I guess technically it'll be harder than last patch since you don't have your disruptor shot, but let's be real, that's not really a factor, because all I have to do, there you go, I have to charge for another 12 seconds, right? You basically get infinite rail whenever you want to fire this thing out. I think that's a problem. Not only does it kind of disrupt her initial gameplay loop that I think we really like, of trying to find her energy, trying to figure out the best time to actually use her energy, trying to kind of manage, is it worth it for me to blow early and then try and get more DPS like that, or should I just hold on to it? I think when you let her hold it for just too long, it just doesn't work. I think this character kind of breaks when you do that, right? So I actually don't think the problem is in a lot of the stuff that they really changed. I think the problem is in the numbers, right? So I think the two biggest factors are the DPS, the pure DPS output, whether that be from disruptor shot, like the combinations of them, right? Disruptor shot, primary fire, the burst of secondary fire, and also just the fact that you can have this charge up forever, right? She doesn't have that minimum anymore, which I think is a good change. I never agreed with the minimum, but I really do think that this charge rate, like, I'm gonna be real, let's bring it down to like 5 seconds. Like, if we want Sojourn to have a rail that is going to be this powerful, we cannot give her all the cards. Do you know what I mean? Soj cannot be above all else, right? She cannot have this type of power at will. I think that is really where a lot of the frustration comes from. So I think there are a lot of different things you can do with this character. Bring her damage down a little bit, somewhere in like the 165 to 180 range. Anywhere in there, depending on how their numbers would work, right? I think that is a good way to do it. I always, suggested just keeping the old damage scaling, but making it 1.75, 1.7, just some random headshot multiplier that would keep the body shot damage. Because also remember that her body shot damage went up too with this, so that just makes Soj more, consistent. But also, do not forget, and I think this is actually a bit underrated, she pierces through people. So even if she's not doing headshot damage, right, I can do a lot of really good cleave against cores, and combine that with the disruptor shot that does 80 damage per second. It actually does matter a lot, right? Like, I think a lot of teams with Sojourn are kind of starting to play the compositions that don't play together as much, kind of like these Kiri Lucios, like the Genjis in particular. I think it's like, you know, Genji Soj is a classic composition from early Overwatch 2 that is kind of coming back, because stacking up like that could just lead to complete disaster if a Sojourn has built a rail and goes on to the next angle and just gets a really big like cleave kill, right? That is another factor in it. So I'm totally down for her scaling to be reworked again, to where she has less damage to the body and overall less damage to the head, but more comparatively to her body shot. I think that's a good way to bring her DPS down overall, especially bring some more skill into it. I'm okay with not having charge on Disruptor. I thought it was interesting, but that's okay. I just do think that damage needs to go down. You know, I think damage overall needs to go down. I actually thought that pre-patch, Soj was a pretty good, pre-patches and pre-season 14, Soj was in a pretty good spot. She actually did have a place and kind of have a niche, and felt a lot better than she had for a couple of months at that point. And just adding that extra damage has kind of broke her, and I don't think they know which way that they want to go. And basically, I think that there's a lot of ways that they could go. And I also do agree that, no, she should not have this rail charge for a lot, right? Like, that's why I think that the rail charge should be really low, and then they can reintroduce Disruptor Shot into that mix as some interesting ways to build it. And just throwing it in there, because I will suggest this every day that I die, until I die. If we're doing things that affect different roles differently, I think it is, you know, especially if we want Soj to have this big rail shot that's like really powerful, let's make the charge less for tanks. Let's give her the shield charge, right? Like when you get 1 per bullet instead of 5, let's give her that. If she shoots a tank. Oh, I forgot that she gets more for headshots again. That's also a part of the problem as well. But let's give her 1 if she shot a tank, because it is so easy just to farm on a tank, look at the DPS, die, right? Especially now when her damage is that high, it's really easy to do that. So I think that's another thing that you could totally do. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say, like, you know, thank you. Sojourn has a bit of her identity back. I think it was great. I think it's great that they are making this change, but I'm going to be real. I thought they went overboard with it and they didn't do enough. And I think that this patch is not quite doing enough to address it, in my opinion. I think they're going to be looking at Soj for a while. Do expect more Soj nerfs come mid-season, another maybe smaller balance patch after this hotfix as well. That is something that I think we are probably going to see. If I had to guess, if I was a betting man, I would say that Soj will be in the next patch in some capacity, because I do not think she will be going away. But that is it. That is what I've got. If you liked the video, please subscribe, but also leave a comment down below. What do you think about Sojourn? I know a lot of people hate Sojourn and they don't want to see her in the meta. Where do you stand on her? I love Sojourn, but I understand that the baggage that comes with this character. Leave a comment, let me know. Like the video while you're at it. I stream live, twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway. That's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. On the day this goes live, I will be live probably around 2, since I don't have work today. And I will be playing the 6v6 tests, and I will be playing them in the Avatar skins where applicable, because I love Avatar. And that is going to happen today if you see this on the day it goes live. And join my Discord down below if you want to get in on all things Lane. Keep up with the updates as well. And I would like to remind you that I do have a Marvel Rivals channel in there as well. So if you're looking for a place for Marvel Rivals talking and hot takes and stuff like that, please join down below. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. Please have a good day.